You all have a special relationship with the Eastern Shore, don't
We
you?
do. We were married on the Eastern Shore. My parents live on the Eastern Shore. We visit all the time. Uh, I grew up as a young kid going to the Eastern Shore all the time. My grandmother had a house in Ocean City, so we were all over the Bay and that part of Maryland for a long time of our lives.
I didn't grow up in Washington like Sean. He's fourth generation, but I moved to DC in '95, and we started working at Geographic soon after that. And Sean and I crossed paths in the television department, and then pretty soon, well, not that soon, I guess, like 6 years after we were married, we started to like think, hey, let's make our own kind of work. And then War Dance, which is one of the films that we were just saying did screen in Easton.
And there's a lot of supporters in Easton, especially of like the work we do, and the people there seem to get really excited, and a few people have even gotten behind our work, which we appreciate.
Says, why did you think that there needed to be new treatment for January 6th?
We were actually there making a film for a studio called A24. On the We were down. We had a crew down at the Ellipse because we were filming a film about the peaceful transition of power and how our government transitions, and we're going to follow the Biden administration. So we thought that'd be a good kind of Trump's last speech, probably a good day to film some things. And our crew quickly got enveloped in what happened and started going to the Capitol, and we were talking to them, and then we're following it on Twitter, and pipe bombs are found, and we're watching footage, and then we lost our cinematographer Kaz Rubacki, who was down there filming, and we couldn't find him for a few hours, and it got a little tense. And we're really close to him, so we got really worried. And then he came back, told us about it. We looked at the footage, and that night we said we got a different film on our hands, and we talked to A24, the studio, and they were really behind changing scope. And I think from that moment, though, it wasn't just that we were there. It was I'm fourth generation Washingtonian. This is our home. I think that day felt really different for people that are from here and that live here. And I think that we wanted to tell a different type of story about that day. If we wanted to tell the definitive emotional story of what it felt like to be six people that went to work that day. Most of those people in our film they're serving, whether they're serving Washington D.C., our country, or even the photojournalist in our film is just serving the public, I think, for taking photos of what happens. They're all just doing their job that day, and they were handed this awful traumatic day and what it was like for them and what they went through. And then I also think for us it was important to follow that day through their eyes from sunrise to the next sunrise. So it's a full day event because all of those people in our film that experienced the traumatic things that they experienced that day also went back to work the next day and kept working, for all of us. And so that was really important for us. It was important to get their stories out.
These six characters or people come from the first film project, and they were just transferred
No,
over?
the first film project, when looking at the transition of power, was yes, it was trying to be inside the Biden transition team, but it was also doing a look back at all the different transitions, going backwards between presidents, the passing of the baton, so to speak. Once we decided this was going to be about January 6th and about what happened, it fundamentally changed the story we were telling. I mean, yes, it is about the transition of power. You could argue it wasn't very peaceful, but it did happen. I think then it became, what are these critical moments that seem to happen that day? How do we go about finding people that from a very personal place were part of that and could tell from their own point of view what they were seeing and feeling from a first person experience? And how is that chemistry served from both, even geographically inside the building, outside the building? Someone whose code of conduct really is about capturing imagery. Other people are about certifying the election. Other people's public service is about protecting,
Police officers.
like in terms of the police officers, like protecting the public and the staffers. And and democracy that day. So it was a lot of different variables of how we went about trying to find that perfect chemistry of how do we tell this through, a set number of people. We didn't set out to use six, but it just started. Okay, if we have this person, then we have this person. If it's like an interesting recipe that you have to kind of get the right balance. But we think and also even in race, because three of the characters are people of color, and we thought that was really important to make sure that race was definitely part of that day. Issues of race and how people talk about it. We were surprised that it hasn't been talked about more, and so we wanted to lean into that in this film.
Did you have an angle, or did you just simply want six people to tell their
I
story?
think we simply wanted six people to tell their story. I mean, I can't sit here and tell you that I'm not upset about what happened that day and that we're not upset, but I think it's more important to understand that it did happen, that it affected people, and then to step back and say, okay, why did this happen? How can this not happen again? I'm really proud of our country, and both of us have traveled, to 40 to 50 countries around the world, and we do have some pretty incredible things in our country because of democracy and because of the right to vote in our process. And I think that it's important to understand that that was a very fragile day for our country and for democracy and for the people that lived through it. And so I think as a documentarian, you have an ability to step back a little bit. You have an ability when you make a film like this, and as a viewer, you have an ability to kind of watch a scene unfold, as opposed to see what we're used to, which is a quick clip of something dramatic and somebody talk over it and people argue on the news about it. You have the ability to really immerse yourself and watch what really happened and hear from people that it affected and watch their facial reactions as they tell you what it felt like to be trapped behind a door fearing for your life, what it felt like to be trying to quote unquote save democracy that day, as a police officer, what it felt like to be a photographer witnessing something they never had ever thought they would witness. Those things are really important, and I think we have that ability in a documentary to do that, and we take very seriously that it's also factually correct. It's not manipulative. We want it's these people's story. There were hundreds and hundreds of people affected that day, but these are these people's story, and they need to be heard, and they're important, and people, I think all Americans need to watch this. It's an American story.
When you decide how you tell a story, even if you decide you want to tell it in a first person experiential way, then it's like, all right, who deserves the 6 seats at the table to tell you that story? And in the beginning, we were at first saying maybe it is just people how did they get there and why are they there? 6 people, right? So that could be insurrectionists and police and congressmen. But after talking to some of the folks who were there as insurrectionists, and then talking to others who were coming just to do their job, it became a really easy decision in that sense. There's a lot of different reasons people showed up that day. Some are very dark and sinister, and some are probably quite innocent and misled, right? I think we were definitely more drawn to the people that never signed up to live and do their job through that, but they did that day, and thank God they did, and they're still doing it to this day. And I think there's a sense of decency that people will walk away from this film really feeling thankful that that's still part of our government and law enforcement and journalism, and that there are still people that really care about doing those jobs well. And I think we need to tell more of that kind of story.
The other thing about that day is how well it was covered in the media. And it must have been for filmmakers really overwhelming to go through so much footage and decide what is appropriate to put in or not.
Yeah, it was. I mean, our edit team of Jeff Consiglio and Christy Martinez, they worked tirelessly at going through footage, as all our team did. I mean, we all looked through all of the footage, and in one sense, it's like amazing because you have like a scene happen, and you have like 20 angles of that scene happening, because it's not just media footage. everybody with a cell phone, everybody was posting it to Parlor and all these things, which we had downloaded that day, all this stuff. It's just, it just was so many, but you had to coordinate what camera was where and everything. It just took a tremendous amount of patience and sifting through. And our team that we worked with was incredible to kind of pull all that together and pull that off.
But it's also uncovering footage that, there's body cam footage, security cam footage. There's finding your characters
In the
at that
crowd.
moment of time and kind of locating them within the sea of what's going on.
Oh, right.
There's also, there were a lot of people that were filming who, like insurrectionists. Everybody had a phone, and but we decided early on, and a lot of people tried to make a lot of money selling that stuff, and we didn't feel right about that. We didn't pay. There's not a frame of footage that we paid for from an insurrectionist. We either fair use that footage, or we found other journalists in the crowd that were there that day.
What do you want the audience to take away from this?
I want people to walk away feeling they are open to perhaps showing up first, thinking I may not know everything about this day, and two, not listening to the misinformation that this was some tourists were coming through this building, that this was peaceful in any way. This was a horrifically violent attack, and it went on for hours. There was over 10,000 people that swarmed the Capitol and broke through the doors and smashed windows and hit police officers with fire extinguishers, bricks, sledgehammers, metal poles, pulled them out into the crowd and were like literally almost like ripping people apart. It was disgraceful and shameful day for our country. And I think people think they know what happened, but I would say, please watch our film and see what you think and decide for yourself. Because there's a lot of big decisions that are being made. There's a lot of talk right now that, hey, if we kind of protest the election and what's going to happen, whether we abide by what those results are or not. I think anarchy and chaos and violence is not something to be romanticized. It's not a movie. It's real people's lives that are affected. It's human beings that are parents and fathers and brothers and wives and daughters, and they're people, and that's what we want this film to come across. I think people really need to share this. We think it's required viewing for everybody in this country, especially before they vote. I think it's very important.
Yeah.
Like every documentary, you're trying to kind of get as many people to see this as possible. How does somebody get
Today, it's available for rent on Apple and Amazon and YouTube. So you can go and type into your search engine, the sixth movie or the sixth documentary, and ours will come up, and you can rent it and watch it that way.
We have a website. It's the6thmovie.com, and you can throw that in there. It'll tell you a little bit more about a film. There's a trailer, and you also have clickable links to all the platforms that Sean was just talking about.
But this sounds like a terrific
Thank you.
project, and
Thanks,
Yeah,
David.
our
We really
pleasure.
appreciate it.
Thanks for the interest.
Thank you.